What is up? Welcome back to another BFF Draft podcast. The 2017 NFL Draft is in the books, which means Steve Palazzolo finally got to take a nap. Steve, how did it feel going in after Saturday night?
My nap?
Yes.
Oh, it felt great.
I know we didn't let you get a full night of sleep, but we let you at least take some sleep, right?
I took a short nap. Saturday was a little crazy. Had to get the full recap out there. Got it out there Saturday night. I took a little nap on Sunday. And yes, it was glorious. But I miss all the fun. All the drama's over.
I was going to say, I was a little disappointed Saturday night. I was like, what do I have to look forward to 3 months before we actually get NFL games? And that's nowhere near as exciting as draft time. I mean, that's when you realize your team sucks instead of right now when you think, hey, maybe this is our year.
Well, I think we just have to do the post-draft analysis and stretch it out. Maybe we'll talk about one team every day until July, and then just keep repeating it, because obviously we'd have to. No, it is.
Well,
it's been a letdown.
2018 draft. It's 2018 draft then in July, right?
Well, I might have a 2018 mock coming out this week, so stay tuned for that one too, because we're getting right back into it.
No, but we're gonna, like Steve said, we're gonna review some of the 2017 draft, because what else do we have to do? I mean, like I said, we have 3 months till the season. Let's give out some meaningless grades. Although I feel like they still have some meaning. Everyone wants to say that these draft grades don't mean anything. I feel like you can get an idea on if you drafted Christian Hackenberg or not, or if you drafted, a guy who's going to be terrible. Someone can tell you that. Someone can tell you on one end of the spectrum or not if you got a guy who's going to be amazing. If you got, a Myles Garrett, if you got a Joey Bosa, or if you got a Hackenberg. I feel like we know enough to tell you one way or the other.
I agree. I mean, you could tell a lot of stuff, and it's all based off our previous evaluations. But this year, we're trying to skew positive. We're trying to give every team some hope with our draft review that's on ProFootballFocus.com right now. So it's about, why did they draft this guy? Where is he going to fit in? We're skewing positive here, Mike, but there's certainly a few picks and a few guys that we thought were better than others, and those are the ones I think we can focus on all of these reviews.
Well, I'll say I wasn't even trying to skew positive, and I have to write an article about the 3 teams that had the worst drafts, and I'm struggling to find them because it was such a deep draft. You could go 100 picks deep to where, maybe they drafted a guy in the first that we had as a second or third round grade, but then in the second they drafted a guy that was a first round grade or, was drafted right where we thought him. So I don't think there was any team that really struck out to where we're just down to where we think that they weren't even, close to our rankings.
Yeah, and I thought, you and I did the SI show for the first round, and we thanks to all of those who tuned in to SI.com to listen to Mike and I do our round one analysis, but we kept looking at each other off air and on the Periscope saying everybody's doing all right. Everybody's picking players that, fit their scheme, fit their system, fit the value of where they should have been drafted. A couple questionable ones here and there.
I was going to say, except for Leonard Fournette and the Jaguars, but that's fine.
You didn't love Fournette. I know. That's going to be your big one for a while. But
I was going to say, if he turns out to be like generational running back, I might have to quit. But
well, the thing is, if he turns out to be really, really good, which is certainly you at least admit that's a possibility, right?
Yeah, I admit it's a possibility. But here's the thing: he could turn out to be Adrian Peterson, and then they could make the playoffs like 4 times in 10 years, like the Vikings did with Adrian Peterson. It's not
true,
a 2-down running back doesn't have that much value. Is all I'm saying. It doesn't have top 5 value, especially in this draft. So I guess we'll kick it off by going with our least favorite picks from day one, and I'll just say it was Leonard Fournette to the Jaguars at number 4 overall.
Explain your reasoning now, because here's my thing with Fournette. When you watch his 2016 tape, clearly he was hurt. Even when you go back to watch his 2015 tape, I thought he took such big strides that year, because as a true freshman in 2014, I thought he just looked like a man amongst boys type of guy, but not a special. He just looked like he was straight line speed and powerful. I thought he added a little wiggle to his game in 2015, which made me think, okay, this guy could be a very good NFL prospect. And then 2016, he's battling injury, and it was a setback. So at his peak, though, he looks like a pretty special player. So why don't you like this fit for the Jaguars?
So I've already said my piece on his vision and his pacing of his runs and how he's just sprinting towards the line of scrimmage, which I don't love translating to the NFL. I just think that you need to have some patience behind the line of scrimmage and then hit the hole once you see it. So any sort of zone scheme where there's really not a defined point of attack, I don't love him in. So I'll just say that right off the bat, which is I think what the Jaguars plan on running next year under Doug Marrone. So someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the case. That being said, he is freakish in his ability. He is, a 240-pound running back running a 4.5 and breaking tackles at a ridiculous rate in college football. But he did that behind an offensive line at LSU that is far, far better than what he's going to see with the Jaguars. The Jaguars, while not a terrible offensive line, will not be mistaken for a top 10 offensive line anytime next year. They just don't have that sort of talent across the board. And at that point, I just think so many of his big runs that he had at LSU came from pretty nice run blocking where he's one-on-one with a safety 5 yards down the field. That's a plus for him. He's just not going to see that nearly as much in the NFL as he did in college. So,
those are fair points. Look, they're fair points. Mm-hmm. And I think, the extreme is when you go to the Alabama games, when he didn't have room to run. I don't know if he's even going to see something that bad in the NFL as far as his run blocking goes, because Alabama's defense was so incredible back-to-back years as far as their gap control. But I think that's why I liked a guy like Dalvin Cook better than Leonard Fournette, is because he did not have great run blocking at Florida State, led the nation in most forced missed tackles last year, and he didn't have the same number of explosive big plays, but I thought he maximized his run blocking better last year than he did the previous year. I don't know that we've really seen Fournette do that in college, is take a subpar situation in a given game and turn it into something. Now, when he gets to the second level, like you said, when he's isolated on safeties, corners, linebackers, doesn't matter, that speed and power is pretty special in the open field. I guess the question is, how often is that going to happen? And now we might have a Todd Gurley type of situation. Does he end up like Todd Gurley his first couple years in the league? I guess that is the fear with Fournette.
And here's the thing, with how much the NFL has devalued running backs, with how often people have said running backs aren't worth a first round pick. There's no quicker way to become a sort of laughingstock or to put your job in jeopardy than to draft a running back highly and then have him become a bust. So I don't see the risk worth taking there. Take a guy with the class where Alvin Kamara went at the top of the third, where talented running backs were going all the way on day 3. The risk of wasting the top 5 pick on a running back just did not seem worth it to me. I get his physical tools. I'm not gonna. I didn't want to be the GM that took him, and they took him top 5. I didn't want to be the GM that took him at 20, and they ended up taking him at 4. So that's my take at the end of the day. We can move on because.
Well, let me just add one more thing to it, because I think you talked about the devaluing of the running back, but I think that the storyline here is that the Cowboys drafted Ezekiel Elliott last year at 4, and he became a special player, right? Mm-hmm. But the argument against is the same thing you said. He goes to a situation where the Cowboys have this incredible offensive line, and I'm not trying to take anything away from Zeke. We had him as a top 10 type of prospect, 3-down type of running back. But the point you always made last year is, what if they got Jordan Howard in the 4th or 5th round, put him behind that offensive line? Would you at least get
and put Jalen Ramsey in exactly
put Jalen Ramsey in that Dallas secondary? Which
you don't think Jalen Ramsey would have helped against the Packers last year? I mean, I think it might have.
So that's where the whole running back thing goes. It's that opportunity cost. What did you miss out on? What did you really gain? How much better is Zeke than all the other running backs? How much better is Fournette than all of the other running backs? When I think at other positions, Myles Garrett could be head and shoulders above the rest of the edge guys. The top, Marshawn Lattimore could be head and shoulders above the other cornerbacks. Mm-hmm. What are the chances that Leonard Fournette is going to be head and shoulders above the other running backs? And that's not even we haven't even taken into account right now or discussed the third down factor. We don't know if he can really catch the ball out of the backfield, and he certainly doesn't create the same type of pass game mismatches that a guy like Christian McCaffrey, Joe Mixon, and Alvin Kamara, some of those other guys may create.
Yes.
Dalvin Cook as well. So that's those are our issues, I guess, with Fournette. But
hey, let's move on. What would you have as a least favorite or a favorite pick? You can go either way here, Steve.
Okay, let me start with favorite pick.
Let's get positive.
I got caught up in the hype that Corey Davis was going to fall after mocking him to the Titans at 5 for much of the offseason. I thought it was this beautiful fit, a beautiful marriage with Marcus Mariota. So I am glad that they took Corey Davis at number 5. Mariota, we knew that they needed receiver help, and when you stacked up the top 3 receivers, Corey Davis, Mike Williams, and John Ross, I think they all have their strengths. They all have different ways of contributing to an offense. I just thought that Corey Davis, as the best route runner in the draft. His ability to separate against man coverage, his ability to find open holes in zones, and after the catch ability and just enough downfield ability. He's an every down. I mean, he's a every level type of receiver. He can dominate short, intermediate, and deep. Great fit for Marcus Mariota. I didn't see Mariota fitting with like a Mike Williams who doesn't separate as well. John Ross would have been okay there, but you've got the injury concerns, and I just thought Corey Davis was a great fit. I'm glad that they went that way. I made the very bold pick last week, or bold prediction, that he was going to be a top 10 all-time receiver in receptions, and I wrote on ProFootballFocus.com this week that he's a 100 reception guy year in, year out. So
not sure they throw enough for 100 receptions, but
I think they will with Mariota.
I do love the pick. I love that they said screw the chance of a receiver falling to 18. Go get a guy right now. Don't even worry about trading. And they did the same thing a year ago when they traded up for Jack Conklin. They said, screw the chance of Laramie Tunsil free falling all the way to us. We have a guy that we love. We're going to take him. Even if maybe the NFL doesn't see him that highly, anyone else does. We love him there. So I agree. Titans, I think they got a guy. They got a number one. They got a true number one.
And a lot of mocks had Corey Davis falling to 18. And, because of he hasn't worked out and all these different things. But I'm glad that they trusted the tape. I mean, that was a big trust the tape move because he hasn't worked out this offseason because of injury concerns. And they just said, you know what? You look fast enough on tape. We see what you do. We're taking you at 5. I love the fit. Give me another good one. So let's skew positive here, Mike. Give me another one that you like.
I would say we've hammered that Jonathan Allen to the Redskins was a great pick, but I think he fell for injury concerns. Anytime a guy falls to injury concerns or character concerns, whatever, Reuben Foster at 31 also, it's hard to say, I love the pick because there is that sort of, maybe his shoulders do give out, and in 3 years he's not the same player. So while we love those two picks, I think there's a reason both fell. The reason the player who I can't, he also has injury concerns as well, but not nearly what I think the Allen injury concerns are, and it's Marshawn Lattimore. I can't fathom how he left the top 10 of this draft when cornerback is just every team needs a cornerback. I feel like in the NFL, every team besides maybe Denver could use a cornerback right now. That's a high-level cornerback, and 10 teams, passed on him in favor of other guys. New Orleans, they hit the lottery, basically. It was unfathomable going into this draft, and they got him.
There's some hamstring things there, though, and hamstrings are scary. I mean, I think that's what it was. I think a big part of this draft, though, I think the draft will be known for good players falling. All right. Even though we liked a lot of the picks in the first round, I think the draft a few years from now could very well be known for how did they get Marshawn Lattimore at 11? How did they get Jonathan Allen at 17? How did they get Reuben Foster at 31, the 49ers? These really good players falling in the draft for whatever reason it was.
Maybe Ramczyk, too. I think.
And Ryan Ramczyk, absolutely. I credit the Saints for not saying, hey, we have Zach Strief at right tackle. We can't take Ryan Ramczyk now. We're going to take the best player on the board. They wanted Reuben Foster badly. That would have been, if they had Marshawn Lattimore and Reuben Foster defensively.
Yes.
I mean, you talk about perfect fits. I was marking Foster to them at 11 for much of the offseason. That would have been incredible.
Well, the 49ers knocked out the park, too, in terms of trading back up. That was a very astute move from John Lynch. Great, because they were saying after the draft, they were thinking about him at 2. That was a possibility for them at 2.
Right.
Get him at 31. Obviously, off-field stuff, whatever. But, man, generational type talent at the linebacker position.
Their first 3 picks between Solomon Thomas, Reuben Foster, and then Arkello Witherspoon at 6'2+, who fits the scheme that they're trying, that Seattle type scheme that they're trying to implement.
I mean, they got him around later than Kevin King when tapes and numbers aren't that different. Tape and numbers.
Absolutely. From tape, from size to movement skills, everything is very similar. I love the value there. We'll go team by team at some point, but I just love what the Niners did in the draft.
All right. Anyone you want to rake on day one? Anyone else you want to really just say that pick sucked?
Well, you and I didn't love the Evan Ingram pick, and we had heard the first round hype for Ingram. I didn't completely buy into it. The big concern is he truly a tight end, and specifically with the Giants, right? If he's a Marcus Colston big slot type of receiver, they already have a Sterling Shepard. They already have Brandon Marshall, who's a big slot who could play outside and in the slot, and they have Odell Beckham. So is Ingram really going to – he's not really going to be that inline tight end when they go 11 personnel, which they run 92% of the time. So are they going to go 10 personnel essentially? He's essentially a wide receiver, and then there's no run threat. So I think the fit at 23 is questionable. Now, if you take him in the second round, it's like, all right, that's fine. That'd be my question at 23, Evan Ingram.
And it's also – the slot has become such a devalued position in the NFL. People feel like they can get production out of a slot. They feel like those guys are a dime a dozen. And you took basically a slot receiver in the first round who wasn't all that productive in college. If you compare him to tight ends, yeah, he seems very productive, but he wasn't really playing as a tight end at Ole Miss. He was basically a slot receiver. At that point, 926 yards for a receiver isn't anything amazing. So I just
mostly in the slot.
Yeah, so that, I don't know.
So here's the thing with him as a blocker. So it's him. Gerald Everett's a similar player, basically a big wide receiver. George Kittle is a guy that's a very good blocker, but I think he's at his best on the move. My point is all of those guys are better as like the second tight end on the field. So if you put Evan Ingram as the second tight end on the field, they've got Jarrell Adams they drafted last year, who I think is a classic old school inline tight end. But now you're not working with your best personnel group because you can't have Jarrell Adams out there as your classic tight end, Ingram as your second tight end, then you're taking snaps away from Sterling Shepard, who we had as our top graded receiver in college football 2 years ago, had a very good rookie season, very good route runner. So if Ingram's the number 2 tight end on the field, just he's still like the number 1 pass option at tight end, but he's a move tight end, a guy that you're gonna send into the flat and all those types of things. I think that's a good fit for him. But the way the Giants play with 11 personnel, you want those 3 receivers on the field, Marshall, Beckham, Shepard. You put Ingram on the field. I don't know if defenses are afraid of you running the ball at all.
Exactly. And especially since you didn't upgrade your offensive line, they're just going to sit back in 2 deep safeties and not give a damn about your run threat. They're going to think that Evan Ingram's is going to get blown up if he's on the play side of any play and not be worried about you handing the ball off. So that to me is why it just – for the first round, with the Fournette pick, with this pick, with how deep both the classes were at running back and tight end, why go early at the position?
Right.
Stay your course, get your guy in the second round, and draft
or get
some other help in the first.
Get
exactly.
Gerald Everett.
So those 2 picks in the first round, yeah. Gonna question. All right, on to day 2. My favorite pick from day 2. I'm just gonna hit it. It's Forrest Lamp. Dude was a sure thing. Dude's probably the best tackle in this class, I'll say. I came around at the end of this to thinking he's better than Ryan Ramczyk at tackle. Definitely I would want him over Garrett Bowles at tackle, and he went to the Chargers. I just pray that they play him at tackle and don't waste him at guard. I mean, he's going to be a Pro Bowl guard, but I think he could be a Pro Bowl tackle as well.
At least give him a shot. So the way things work,
no one ever gives him shots.
Well, this is what's weird about football. The way things work, I'm going to compare to baseball because I was a pitcher. In baseball, I
love cross-sport analogies.
You have to, right?
Yeah.
In baseball, you draft a top prospect pitcher, and even if you think he's going to be a reliever down the road, you just look at him, you're like, he's only got 2 pitches, he's going to be a reliever. You put him through the minors as a starter. First off, you get more innings, which is just more reps, more experience, so you're going to, develop a little bit quicker. And then you just kind of see, I know he only has 2 pitches, maybe he could develop the changeup, maybe he could develop the third pitch, and if he doesn't, okay, he's the reliever that we thought he was, and that's what he is when he gets to the big leagues. But there's also a chance that he develops and makes maybe those 2 pitches are so incredible that you're like, hey, he could be a starter. So
exactly.
What happens in the NFL is, hey, this guy played some great tackle in college, but his arms are too short. There's no possible way we could play him at tackle in the NFL. Just throw him at guard. I don't see the harm in bringing him to camp as a tackle and saying, all right, let's see. Go to camp. Go try to block Joey Bosa. Go try to block Melvin Ingram with those short little arms. What if he does it? I mean, he did it against Alabama. He did it against Tim Williams, Ryan Anderson, Jonathan Allen, 3 guys that are all first and second round talents. He did it. He did it against LSU in 2015.
He did it against you gave up 4 pressures last year.
He did it against everybody. Absolutely.
Everybody.
So it's one of those things where you've got this baseline of arm length that you need to hit, but what if everything else is just exceptional? His footwork, his balance, everything else. I think that's where Forrest Lamp is. So try him at tackle, and if he fails, you make him the guard that you thought he was going to be. And I understand. I think this is a legit question with Zach Martin right now in Dallas.
Yes. Should they make him right tackle?
What if he was an average right tackle? Is that more valuable than being a Pro Bowl guard? I think there's a legit question, and shame on PFF for not properly quantifying it yet. We're working on it. But I think there's a legitimate question, even if you get average tackle play in the NFL. Oh, man, that's so valuable in the NFL right now. The tackles are terrible in the NFL.
And I feel like it would be more than average tackle play. We saw Kyle Long play average tackle after right guard, and Zach Martin is a class above Kyle Long in terms of guard position.
Right.
He could do it. He could do it. Like, there's no doubt in my mind he could do it because of how few times arm length actually comes into, matters that much. I just feel like it's such a limited, amount of snaps where, you lose because of the arm length on the edge that I'm not worried about it. So
I hear you. I'm with you there.
And it's just so much easier to replace a guard than a tackle. Like, I just feel like I'm taking crazy pills at the end of the day. So I love the Forrest Lamp pick.
Give Forrest Lamp a shot to play.
Give him a shot at tackle. Anyone you loved in the second or third round, Steve?
Yeah, let me start in the second round. If I'm going to take away, because, in the first round we talked about guys falling because of injury. Obviously, the off-field concerns of Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, put those guys, I think, in really good situations. I think Cook to the Vikings, Mixon to the Bengals. Those are first-round talents that went because of off-field reasons, so I think they could absolutely pay off. Taking away those guys, though, back-to-back picks, 56 and 57. Obi Melifonwu to the Raiders, Zack Cunningham to the Texans. I thought both guys fringe first-round type of players who definitely help in the pass game. Melifonwu adds another just good coverage flexibility in the back end for Oakland. They had Darian Conley in the first round. They already have some big corners. They have Reggie Nelson. They have Carl Joseph. Now you have Obi Melifonwu, who's 6'4", 224, incredible athlete. He's not that hammer against the run that a 6'4", 224-pound safety would imply, but I love the coverage flexibility that he brings on the back end. And then Zack Cunningham, I think you're getting a three-down linebacker that flies to the ball, has no problem shedding and taking on blocks in the run game, has to tackle better. I keep criticizing him for that, missed 34 over the last couple of years, but he can cover length, range, and zone, everything. And again, I just think these are two guys that fell a little bit lower than I thought, and they were really good value later in the second round.
No, there were a handful of guys. I mean, like, even Dalvin Tomlinson before that with the Giants, I loved. There were just so many picks in the second and third day that I loved. I'll just keep going. I loved Jordan Willis to the Bengals, 73. You said it. You said he's what'd you say? He's steal the draft, right? You said that?
Well, yeah, because
if he drops out of the first,
we had a middle of the first, and look, I think our guys had some questions about him watching him on tape. We went back. We said, how was he so productive in our system? One of our top graded edge defenders last year, but then he went to the combine and absolutely crushed it. And I just think that combination rarely fails. The combination of elite PFF grade, and we only have a few years of this, but elite PFF grade along the defensive line and elite athleticism has translated extremely well. So you're getting a first-round talent in the third round. The Bengals got they got 4 first-round talents between John Ross, Joe Mixon, Jordan Willis, and then your boy Carl Lawson.
The guy who we'll mention as
in round 4.
Best pick. So
the best pick. So
and
Willis was definitely worth it early third.
And I will say the one more guy that I thought. So you mentioned Obi Melifonwu to the Raiders in the second as one of the best picks. I thought the Raiders' best pick of the whole weekend was actually in the third round. Eddie Vander does. I'll just say this from what we've seen.
You trashed him out of the combine though.
No, the Senior Bowl when he was fat.
Oh, I mean, I meant the Senior Bowl.
That was worrisome. That was worrisome that he was the fattest guy walking across stage at the Senior Bowl. Yes, that was worrisome. But here's what I'll say, and it's so many times we've seen the NFL, a guy 1 year removed from an ACL on the defensive line or on offensive line, just have a year that's not great. It's just like the year after you tear your ACL, just not be quite yourself. We saw it with Geno Atkins. We've seen it with a handful of guys, and then they bounce back even further the next year. Eddie Vander had the ACL in 2015, bounced back in 2016 for a good, not great year, but we saw flashes of him as a sophomore being that sort of dominant guy to where if he takes the next step back from his injury, if he was actually hampering some sort of, ill effects from that knee injury last year and was still playing at the level he was, he has high-level interior line traits to where he could be a B.J. Raji in his prime. He could be a game-changing nose tackle.
I like that
with pass rush ability to where I just think they got a steal in the third round if he realizes that potential. I hate the word potential, but I'm going to say if he realizes that, recovery from his knee injury.
Well, yeah, there's something to that. I definitely think he wore down the stretch. But at his peak was that first game in 2015 against Virginia. He was just unbelievable against the run. Then he got hurt, and then he starts 2016. Looks like he's back. Very good game against Texas A&M. Quick hands. He's quick off the ball. And then he just kind of tapered off. So he was a guy I was looking at as a first-round pick for much of the offseason heading into 2016. Early 2016, he looked like it. He tapered off. I think it is worth the risk in the third round. So I'm with you. That could be a potential home run down the road.
All right. Okay, keep
give
going.
Me one more. Just Trey Hendrickson going late third to the Saints, another edge guy, and another production combine type guy. So in our system, led the nation in pressures. I know it was at Florida Atlantic, but he had big games against Miami. He had big games against Florida the year before. Not that they have the greatest offensive lines, but we're talking about a guy who was a dominant edge rusher and then always stepped up against Power 5 competition as well. And then again, goes to the combine and does a really nice job. So it's production plus athleticism. Well worth it. 103rd pick overall. Well worth the risk for the Saints with Hendrickson.
Agreed there. I was going to say any guy you want to shit on from day two. Anyone you just think, no, bad pick.
I'm a little scared of criticizing LSU linebackers going to the Falcons. We did it with Deion Jones last year. He had a very nice rookie season. Still showed some of the issues that we brought up, but for the most part, he was really good. Athleticism played in the NFL. I think the Falcons are banking on that from Duke Riley. Undersized linebacker, pretty good athlete. Did not play football all that well last season. That's all I'll say. That's where we are on Duke Riley. But Deion Jones didn't play football that well in 2015, and he had a very nice rookie season. So that would be one of the picks that I'd say, okay, I feel like that guy, I felt like Duke Riley should have been going a little bit later in the draft.
I'm going to feel bad saying this because the two picks that I probably didn't like the most were for the same team, but Pittsburgh Steelers drafting Tyus Bowser in this. Yeah. Oh, no, sorry. Not Tyus Bowser. I'm sorry. The Pittsburgh Steelers drafting Juju Schuster-Smith was not good.
Smith-Schuster. Sorry.
Either way.
Still not good? Even if he's
still
Smith-Schuster?
Yeah. Not a fan of him.
Yeah.
I just...
Look, we went back and did a lot of extra work on Juju, and I've seen some crazy comparisons for him. I've seen Des Bryant. I've seen all these other ones that just don't match the film. The issue with Juju, he doesn't separate very well, and he's not really a beast at the catch point. I just used beast as a real, where's the fine book? I need to get
beast.
Fined. Man, that's really bad on my part. That is really bad. I might put myself on timeout. But my point is,
should we cut it?
We might have to cut this whole segment. It's been rough all the way around, but who cares? The people want to hear what's really happening behind the scenes. Look, Juju doesn't separate well. He does not really win at the catch point. I think Sam put it really well. He said, here's a guy, he's like really average, and then he'll just have this flash, just random flash of being really good. I think his best plays with the ball in his hands, he does have some really good after the catch runs, where he'll, use some power, use some speed, but doesn't separate, doesn't really win at the catch point other than the odd time that he does, which is just not enough for a guy that's supposed to be a big physical receiver. So, yeah, I don't love Juju.
All right, let's move on to day 3 and get back to some of our favorite picks. And I said Carl Lawson. That one's a given. I don't even understand. Even with the medical, he better have a terribly torn ACL at this point, because I saw Jalen Smith go at the top of the second round knowing that he wasn't going to play year one. I saw Sidney Jones go in the second round knowing he wasn't going to play year one. Carl Lawson even sliding to the fourth, even if he's not going to play year one. I still would draft him in the third or the second, because he's that sort of talent. I think he is Brandon Graham 2.0, which I've said on the show before. I just think he's that good. So one of my favorite
home
picks.
Run. Yeah, potential home run pick there.
Love that pick. They could have their successors to their both their DNs in Cincinnati for this draft. If Michael Johnson and Carlos Dunlap are on their last legs, I think they could replace them seamlessly with Carl Lawson and Jordan Willis. But we'll see how they turn out. But I'm a fan of both picks. A few more that I was a fan of, obviously Dietrich Wise, huge fan of what he can do for the New England Patriots. They have a type. Dietrich Wise is that type. He is basically Trey Flowers, Chandler Jones. that sort of long, handsy, keeps himself clean, can impact run and pass.
Yep.
Big fan of that pick. And I will also add Stevie Tuikolovatu,
Your boy.
7th rounder, to the Bucks. He's the best nose tackle in this class in terms of run stopping ability. To me, there's no debate in that. And last but not least,
old.
Okay, well, let's get to that later. And last but not least, Elijah Hood, 7th round to the Raiders.
You're a real guy.
Oh my God! Like I still feel like I am not crazy, but like how no one else sees it but me. That Elijah Hood was a top 5 to top 6 back in this draft.
Why
like
did
he is that good.
Back? He took a step back in 2016.
He had concussions, which maybe they're more serious than it let on, but. Man, oh my God, his sophomore tape was unbelievable. All right, that's all I got.
One of the top elusive ratings in the class.
Freaky that year. And everyone wants to talk about Fournette's sophomore tape. Elijah Hood's vision was much better than Fournette's back sophomore year. Just much, much better. So,
you think he's going to be a steal for the Raiders?
Absolute steal. I feel like a dick for saying this, but I almost want Marshawn Lynch to, pull a hammy. Give Elijah Hood a little, he gets to start a couple games.
Just to prove yourself right.
Rips off 150 a couple times. I mean, that's what happened with Jordan Howard in Chicago.
They could share carries, man. You don't have to root for injury here.
I know, I feel bad rooting for injury, but I just want him to...
He'll play in the preseason.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm a fan. I'm pretty confident he's the number 2 back there when behind Marshawn at the end of the day.
Elijah Hood, big fan. All right, let me give you some of my favorites.
You go.
Let me start with Matt Collins in the 4th round. I don't think that he got drafted. I think he got drafted in about the right spot. I'm not saying he's not like Carl Lawson, a guy that we thought was a first-round talent that fell. I just think that the dividends could be huge.
Mm-hmm.
He has this second-level speed that shows up on tape. There's a reason why he had, I think it was 71 or 80, about 80 receptions tops in college. 20 of them went for touchdowns, 20 yards per catch. And even when he wasn't targeted, you saw times that he just sneaks up on DBs. He just has that special long striding deep speed. So if he stays healthy, could be a special deep threat. And he's the proverbial special teams ace as well. So he could do that extremely well. So I like what Matt Collins
by the way, ace isn't used in any, sort of other form in the English language ever nowadays, besides when it's referring to special teams.
Holes in one.
Okay, but I'm saying an ace in that sort of, someone being good at something.
Every special teamer that gets signed during free agency is a special teams ace. They're all every single one of them. So I like Matt Collins. Could be a very good player. Oh man, as I surf through, there's so many of them. Desmond King in the 5th round, cornerback to the Chargers. It's very confusing when you see LAC and LAR now trying to.
Oh, I know, right?
Do some, take a step back, think about what team is this now? So the Chargers get Desmond King, graded extremely well for us. I understand the concerns. I don't think he's great in man coverage. Played a lot of off, zone type coverage at Iowa. But if he's going to do that in the NFL, if you're going to play zone with him, he's one of the better guys in the draft. I know teams wanted him to play some safety. I don't understand that necessarily. I'd still try him at corner. Sure, tackler, only missed 11 tackles over the last 3 years. And really good ball skills and really just good feel for the game. This goes back to a few podcasts ago, Mike, when we talked about underrated skills for corners, and we said everybody just says, can he cover man? Right? Can he cover this man? And even though Desmond King might not be the best at straight up covering a man, he's one of the best zone coverage corners because he's got a good feel for route concepts. He's got good ball skills. I just think he could be a potential steal in the 5th round. So I like that. As I'm looking at the list, I think the guy that went right after him, Corn Elder, not maybe my favorite pick, but I think fit-wise with Carolina, they play a lot of zone, and that fits Corn Elder's skill set again. So those unexciting zone corners going in the 5th round, I think, could be very, very good players. Have to mention George Kittle going to the 49ers. Boy, did I love the 49ers draft.
Yes. Oh, my Lord. That pick was in terms of, I feel like he could also play fullback in Shanahan's system and be this sort of move guy. Not very good move guy. New sense, but in the fullback to inline to sometimes slot, but
Right.
Just has so many skills in terms of what he can do as a blocker that it will actually provide value in that offense where a lot of offenses that wouldn't be the case.
I get what you're saying. So you don't have to waste a roster spot on a fullback because George Kittle's your fullback / H-back / tight end / could play in the slot. Big fan of George Kittle, one of the better blocking tight ends in this draft, and he's got a little wiggle and shiftiness to his route running that I think, he could be a weapon in the pass game. So big fan of his. Xavier Woods, I don't know if there was some off-field or injury concerns with him, but he goes in the 6th round to Dallas. He's a safety out of Louisiana Tech. And in this safety class, we've been doing the draft for a few years now. In the last couple of years, I've just been asking all of our analysts, just find me some good safeties. Find me a guy that can play center field. Find me a guy that can do multiple things. This year had probably 10 more guys than we've seen the last 2 years combined that could play deep safety, play the slot, do all these different things. Xavier Woods was one of them. Played in the slot quite a bit at Louisiana Tech, got his hands on a ton of passes. Just a fan of his game. And Dallas adds Jordan Lewis, who could play outsider in the slot, Chidobe Awuzie, who could play outsider in the slot, and now Xavier Woods. So you talk about those movable chess pieces in the defensive backfield. Mike, this draft as a whole...
Love the Cowboys draft, yeah.
I mean, we could spend an hour talking about the Arizona defense and all of the versatility that they're bringing with all of their guys, but I love this draft because there are so many versatile players on both sides of the ball that I think are just going to make for some fascinating, dorky X and O storylines in the NFL going forward, and the Cowboys are right up there with all of these, versatile defensive backs that they added.
Oh, I said it right at the top. I said it was hard for me to find someone that I thought lost because I loved what so many teams did. So few times the teams reach for talent. Even if they did, they ended up getting a guy in the next round that we like. So it was just a good draft all around. I will say my least favorite picks from day 3. Any running back that you drafted before Elijah Hood. Any nose tackle before Stevie
decision.
T. But those are the only bad picks from day 3, though, that I could find.
I think it's because a lot of war rooms had the PFF draft pass. They had their printed out PDF. They had it there. I mean, from when we started in 2014 and we were very upset about a lot of picks, I feel like we've grown. And there's certainly, we know some teams are using our stuff. We know which teams are using our stuff, and we know, and I'm not saying they use it to a T, but there weren't a ton of picks that we said, okay, that's just bad. We hate it. And I'm not saying it's because of us. A lot of it was the depth of the draft, as you mentioned, but not a lot to be upset about. I got one more pick I want to highlight. Chase Rollier.
Yeah, I was going to say, I saw that one coming. 199, the Brady pick.
The Brady pick, yeah. Rollier's probably going to be a 5-time Super Bowl champion because that's what happens to every picked 199. But you're talking about Washington needs that help on the interior of the offensive line. He can play center, he can play guard, can make reach blocks in a zone scheme, destroys people in a gap scheme. I just think he brings great versatility. I'm not saying he's going to be a Pro Bowler or anything, but I think if you found a starting offensive lineman in the 6th round, that's a steal. That's great value. I think Rollier has that potential, and I think he was one of the better center prospects in the entire draft.
No, yeah, we loved him just in terms of what he could do. We had much higher round grade on him than where he went, and we just thought there were so few guys with. So there were guys with traits in the later round, but there were so few guys with actual production on a college football field along the offensive line going into later rounds, and he was one of them. He was maybe the only one going into that late, so that could be potentially a steal for them in terms of they also need left guard and center help in Washington, so he could play either of those spots.
Yeah, in 2015, one of our top graded guards. 2016, I think it was our number 9 graded center, and he did it, as like a pulling guard in a gap scheme, as the center in a gap scheme. He can make the reach blocks of zone. It just brings a lot to the table. Solid in pass protection. So, like that pick for Washington.
Any more picks you want to hit here, Steve? Give me the one guy that maybe you didn't love going into this draft who went to a team where you said, hey, that actually works. Like he'll be better there than he would have been elsewhere.
You're putting me on the spot.
Yeah, that was really putting you on the spot. I'll give my guy. So I didn't love Hassan Reddick going into this draft as a linebacker. I've said before, he's can do a lot of things. I've never seen him be elite at one sort of thing. But in Arizona, they will take advantage of all those things he can do as a blitzer, as a man coverage linebacker, as, the this sort of Swiss Army knife that he is, they will actually take advantage of all those different aspects to where maybe he doesn't have to be amazing at any single one, but being good at all of them is going to be enough to scare opposing offenses. So I think Haason Reddick, while I would not have put him near a top 15 player, while I wouldn't have thought about drafting him before Reuben Foster at any point going into this draft, going to Arizona, that makes sense, and I think he will be a successful player there.
Yeah, man, like I said, we could do an hour on the Arizona defense because the other guy that could fit that exact description is Budda Baker, and I know there's a lot of Budda Baker fans. I have some concerns about his game, but he goes to Arizona. Our comp for him was Tyrann Mathieu. He'll be playing with Tyrann Mathieu. I mean, they have so much versatility there. Let me try to answer your question properly.
Okay.
Tano. Passagnon.
There we go. Yeah.
Going to Kansas City and kind of like your old school 3-4. And he is that 6'7", 6'8", 290-pound classic 3-4 defensive end next to your boy Chris Jones. I think he could really thrive there. With Passagnon, I could see a team with like a 4-3 team maybe slotting him in as a base defensive end and trying to get something out of him, but he really needed to go to this classic 3-4 type of team, I think, to really maximize his game, and I thought that was a good fit for him. So
yeah, I would have hated to see him at a wide nine. I love to see him getting to engage a tackle immediately, play after play. I think that's where he'll win the most. So 100% agree with that. I didn't love his game, but I think they can, one, develop D linemen there in Kansas City, and two, they play a great scheme for him. So
they do.
Definitely on board with that. All right, that'll be all for us here. Just reviewing our favorite picks, some of our least favorite picks from the 2017 NFL Draft. Throughout the rest of the week, we'll be doing AFC overviews, NFC overviews, going through each team, actually dissecting their entire draft to say which pick was good, which pick was bad, which pick we had no clue why they took them. Not a lot of those this year, thankfully. But that'll be it for us. Hope you guys have a good one. We will talk to you later.